Hello, Saskia, Devotional Goddess here. I'm going to share with you today a little bit about who I am, my history, and what has brought me to this point. I grew up in Spain to Dutch parents. We then moved to England when I was 1.5. I had all my formative years in England. And being the children of Dutch parents, we were different. Our parents worked differently than other parents did. Just even within Europe, of course, there are different cultures. And my parents were always very relaxed, grounded. It was a calm household. It was such a blessing that environment was there for me. Once I'd been through my first job, my first couple of jobs and schooling and all of that, come 94, I felt like I was, at a loose end, not knowing where the next step was. And I was like, well, I'm Dutch. Let's go to Holland and see what it's like to live in Holland and be a Dutch girl. So in 94, we packed up the car and we took the ferry. My mother and I took the ferry. And she spent the first week with me in the Netherlands in an attic room, I want to say, of my aunt. And I lived there for the first couple of years. Very simple, just basically 2 bedrooms. One room was a kitchen. The other room was the bedroom, either side of a corridor. They were really storage rooms in the old Amsterdam buildings. But of course, it's a small city and there's a housing shortage. And there was a bathroom, a toilet in the corridor that myself and 2 others shared. And then I could shower downstairs at my aunt's or at the gym or where have you. But, in your 20s, you are adaptable and malleable and quite happy to live without certain amenities and make it work. In those years, it was surprising how challenging it was and how not good my Dutch was. And how it needed very, a lot of attention and improvement. But it really was a massive learning curve. And I worked with my first mentor then. She was a psychic. And it was a very important lesson for me at that time. Because even though she had the gift of inner sight, she hadn't done the work on herself, and her moral compass was a little skewed. Because she did misuse the gift a little. And that was an important lesson for me, because that allowed me to raise the bar within myself, to attract and to be able to discern what was a clear channel and what was not. So I worked with her for a year or so. She did, there are no mistakes, right? We get the people we need in our lives to allow for learning and growth. And that's what she did too. I'm very grateful for this lady. She did operate from the heart, but because there was some healing that still needed to be done within her, there was misalignment. So she taught me some basic foundations with which to start healing. And I always, which is interesting, whenever I went to see somebody or when I worked with someone long term, it really was fine. You can see, you have the sight, or you have very strong intuition, but teach me the tools. I don't want you just telling me what to do. I need to have the tools so that I can bring it into myself and embody it and start to do the steps myself. As a child, or as a younger adult, I always was fascinated by the spiritual world, about mysticism. I loved the ideas of psychics, and if I had an opportunity, I used to go. And my family thought it was all very odd. And it's like, stop seeing these people. And it's like, no, it fascinated me. I was always drawn to that. And my parents bought me the odd mystic book because they were like, oh, the child loves this stuff. And I really drank it in. but it was not the language of the family as a whole. So that was very, very different for me. So then, moving on, after 6 years of living in the Netherlands, I moved to the States and started my journey in 2000 in the States. And this is where I met my yoga teacher, who I worked with for 10 years in Massachusetts. An amazingly gifted woman. Now let me backstep. There was an important aspect of when I lived in the Netherlands. I remember sitting on the metro once, curled up, and I saw someone looking at me. And I remember the anger and the disgust within me of like, what are you looking at? There's nothing to see here. And I just wanted to curl up in a ball and disappear. I felt that unworthy. I felt that small. I was that angry at the world and in pain. But in that moment, I also got a flash of insight, which is what drove me forwards from that point. And it was very clear of no. To live on this earthly plane and to have this human experience, it has to be about love and joy. And that was so poignantly clear to me, that this is not what I came here to be. That this is not what the essence of life is. Life is supposed to be of essence, joyful. And I was in the polar opposite place. And that's what was so important to me of like, okay, what do I need to do to find a place of contentment? Joy might be too much of a leap, but I want to find a place of contentment where I can operate in a place of neutrality, a place of contentment, and aspire to be in a place of love, aspire to live from a place of joy, a place of exuberance, a place of loving this body, loving this life, and lightness within the grounding of being on this planet. And I will say that my yogic journey also began in the Netherlands. And I had some amazing, strong teachers to show me the way. And again, what's interesting was the journey in the Netherlands was very much coming to live in my body. I worked in hotel and catering. And, I was in my early 20s. And yet I still woke up in the night with a dull ache in my hip, because I was standing all day and I didn't know how to embody my body. And I was actually hanging in my body opposed to embodying my body, living in my body. And as I started on my yogic journey in the Netherlands, I began to become stronger in my body. I began to feel trust and safety within my body. We've all exhibited trauma, either with the large T or the small t. And I had my own history of trauma, which made it unsafe to be in my body many times. So finding the way, and yoga was the modality for me to create strength, stability, safety, and trust again in my body. And the teachers that I had were very proficient in yoga, but they lacked the heart. And when I moved to America, that's what I found in my mentor and my yoga teacher in America, was the heart. The open, compassionate heart. When I started my yoga teacher training with her, it took me a while, a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, a couple of months. And one day when I was walking through Boston, it suddenly dropped into my consciousness what it was that I was witnessing in her. And it was humility. And I'd never seen the embodiment of humility in the way that Kim, my teacher, embodied it. And once I saw that, I could more fully embrace her teachings. Because prior to that, my critical mind was like, who is she? Is she a walkover? Is she a softie? You know, all that judgment. But she knew where to draw the line when necessary. And she operated from the heart. And she operated from a place of truth. And she was walking the talk. She was in integrity with herself. And again, it wasn't for nothing that I was attracted to her, because those were the qualities that I desired. Not fully consciously knowing at the time, but she was there to show me how to embody it. Once I completed my 200-hour teacher training with her, I worked privately with her because I was like, no. And I went straight on to working with my 500-hour teacher training with her, because I knew she had the knowledge. She embodied the knowledge. She was continually working and enriching herself. She was walking the talk. And I was like, yep, I'm going to continue working with you. I'm going to continue drinking up your knowledge, drinking in your wisdom. I'm embodying it. I'm ready. And I continued throughout my 500-hour teacher training to also do private mentoring with her, because I saw within myself, not fully comprehending, but I had an idea of like, okay, I'm stuck here. I need guidance as to how to move beyond this pattern that I'm living within. And I began to shift. She gave me practices. She gave me the tools with which to embody the practices myself, to allow myself to become stronger mentally, physically, emotionally. These were the tools that I was thirsty for, and I knew that these were the tools that I needed in order to live from a place of contentment, embodying my truth, living in my own sovereignty, coming to understand who I truly am as my own unique human being. And she helped me to set the foundations for all of this. And it's interesting how people are in your life for a certain amount of time, and then the connection dissipates or lessens, and the contact is either not at all, is no more, either due to one person leaving the area or the vicinity or the continent, or coming to find another teacher, the next teacher to bring you on your path. This is the beauty of life. Everyone is in our lives for a period of time to teach us something. Now, for the main perspective, I had a new teacher to come in for the next aspect of my life. No, for the next aspect of my life. There was a time where I embodied and imbued all the qualities I needed. And Kim was there every now and then to lean on. My mentorship changed with her as I then began to become a mentor in how to teach the yoga spirit training that she taught me 10 years prior. So then I went ahead and taught 2 of her yoga teacher trainings, the 200-hour to 2 graduating years. In pivotal years for me, just after the birth of my firstborn child, and the second training was as my marriage was dissolving. When I started the training, I was married. By the time I finished the training, I was divorced, with 2 kids under the age of 4. But it showed me you can hold your life together as it's falling apart and still remain grounded and steady. Yes, I was depleted. Yes, there was, but I didn't fall apart. I was able to maintain a foundation as everything else was crumbling around me. because I'd built that strength within me. And there was more to build, and there always is more to build. But that showed me what I had within me to sustain a foundation. From that point, life continued. I worked on maintaining a steady foundation with 2 little ones. I needed to up my self-care in order to maintain grounding. With 2 little ones who aren't sleeping through the night, if any of you have had kids, you know how hands-on you need to be with kids who are under 4, under 5, until they start going to kindergarten and you start to have a foundation to your day again, rebuilding your life. And then, of course, COVID hit. Another layer of embodiment, needing to stay grounded while homeschooling, needing to stay steady, needing to maintain an equilibrium within myself in order to allow the girls to continue to find a sense of safety amidst the chaos of all the change and the polarization that was happening around us. Listening to my own beliefs, listening to my own needs, and staying true to what was true to me. Again, another very important life lesson. And then, of course, COVID closed and finished. And then I had a breast cancer diagnosis. So then, also needing to come to terms with that healing crisis. Coming to make peace with all the aspects within that. And now, coming to heal and rebuild my body, cleanse my body from the chemicals that saved my life but are also detrimental to my vitality right now. I'm halfway through. It says it takes about 2 years to clear the chemo, clear the radiation, clear the chemicals from your body post cancer. And I'm nearly a year into that journey. And just witnessing my new regime, rebuilding my life. And as I was going through the cancer treatment, I needed to advocate for my family. I needed to stand strong, even while my body was being attacked by the medicine that was healing it. I was also being attacked by the person I have karma with, being undermined, and in some ways being persecuted. And yet, I needed to stand my ground. So life gives us what we need. Can we rise above it and allow ourselves to step above that victimhood, to say, I am here for all the world to see. I am able to take in the lessons, to see the lessons, so that I may rise above. And yes, of course, there are moments where victimhood comes in. Why is this happening to me? Oh my God, really? Another thing? Another whammy? What on earth? When is this done? You know, whatever the victimhood story is, unique to each of us. And that's to be honored. But how can we rise above it? How can we honor the muck, be in it, and yet rise above it to say, okay, we need to honor all the emotions. We need to be in the pity party. We need to allow it to purge through us in order for us to rise up and say, okay, I can do this. There's no spiritual bypassing. We need to honor every phase, in order to come up. Now the ticket is that it becomes easier, and we don't sit in the muck as long. I don't sit in the muck as long as I used to, because I practiced it enough times that I'm able to honor the muck, honor the emotions, emote to whatever degree I need to, and move on. When I did that teacher training 20 years ago, it was one class a week for a year. And I think I may have had a dry eye one or two of the classes. And my teacher said, sometimes you need to cry a river to come out the other end. And boy, did I cry a river. There is a lot of water in my astrological chart. So that is one of my constitutional qualities. And that was also part of my learning, was how to ground my water. So now, yes, of course, I honor my tears. But often it is a couple of tears now, or a good sob for half a minute, and I've cleared it through. When we suppress our emotions, we create dis-ease in the body. We need to create safety within the body in order to know I can hold this. It is safe for me to be in this emotion and to move through it. And often in the beginning, we need a loving, compassionate being to hold the space with us, because it's scary in the beginning. And if we have that loving, compassionate person moving from the heart, holding humility, to hold the space, we come to learn that it is safe to emote. It is safe to be in the throes of that trauma, to revisit that trauma and to allow it to heal, come to the surface, to heal and move on out. This is the journey. If you're still with me and you've enjoyed and it resonates what I've said, and if this journey, if there are threads of this journey that resonate with you, click the links below. Take advantage of my June promotion, and I look forward to working with you. It will be my absolute pleasure. Many blessings. Till the next video. Bye-bye.